Listeners, we will get to introductions, but before we do that, Joe, I want to ask you to tell us something that you believe about real estate right now that might surprise listeners.
Well, Jonathan, that's a heck of a way to start. But I can tell you there's one thing that I've been running across lately is not everybody's meant to be a real estate investor. There's people we're finding just weren't ready to get into the investment business. They thought, oh, this is going to be passive income. That passive word, it's real estate is anything but that. So you've got to, it's a business and you have to treat it like that.
Listeners, welcome to The Source of Commercial Real Estate, where we talk to the experts in commercial real estate so you can grow your business, find a competitive advantage, and use real estate to live the life that you want. I am your host, Jonathan Hayek. I'm a former public school teacher who found financial freedom through residential real estate investing, and now I invest in commercial properties, particularly small industrial properties. And today I have the privilege of talking with Joe Killinger. Joe's been an active member in the real estate industry for over 30 years. Over the years, he's been an agent, investor, syndicator, founder, and operator of companies, as well as the properties he invests in. He's been personally responsible for the sale of or directly involved in the marketing of over 6,500 assets, resulting in closed transactions totaling over $950 million throughout the United States. He's also grown 3 different companies to $5 million in revenue within 18 months. Joe, thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing today?
Good. Thank you for having me on, Jonathan. I really appreciate you for the invitation.
Joe, why don't we start out this conversation by you telling us a little bit about your background and what your work in real estate looks like today?
Okay. It's kind of a long story, so I'm going to give you the very shortened version, or we'll be here all day. But I grew up in central Nebraska on a working farm, small town, 280 people. Father was a auctioneer. He was getting his auctioneer's license. Well, my mother and I ran our farm, and so he started doing livestock sales. It's a few sale barns, and actually a sale barn in Spalding, Nebraska. Ended up doing farm equipment sales, that kind of stuff, and ended up dabbling into real estate. And when he started getting into real estate, that really piqued my interest because I really love the way he put it all together, marketed it. And so it really got me interested. And then I went off to the University of Nebraska. I was there for about a year and a half. And I was fortunate enough through my father to meet a guy there that was at a company called Woods Brothers Realty in Lincoln, Nebraska. And he agreed to take me on as a mentee. So I ended up having this incredible mentor. He's an older gentleman, and he taught me how to do farm sales, which you can imagine. I was 18. I bought readers just so I could have glasses to look. I mean, I looked like I was 12 years old, so it really wasn't good. But I never did actually sell anything. But, I learned how to do cold calling, and I learned the hard way. They brought a phone book in, set it in front of me, go, okay, here's all this area is all farms, call these people. And so that's how I started cold calling. But then the economy wasn't great in the 80s in Nebraska. My parents ended up losing the farm. Fortunately, my dad had the auction business going then, and they moved into an apartment above their office. And my little sister and my mother and father both moved in. There was one bedroom apartment. Sister slept on the couch, which means there was no place. If anything went south for Joe, there was no place to go. So got in the car and headed to California and got my real estate license there. Found a mentor in residential real estate at Tarbell Realtors down in San Clemente area, and really realized that residential wasn't for me. And then moved to LA and really jumped into real estate as best I could. Ended up at a large auction company, and it was called Kennedy Wilson. It was the largest in the nation. And my now business partner, George, was there. We both ended up, well, I got laid off by George, and then he got laid off a couple months later. And then he had the gall to call me and say, hey, I'm looking for work. And so we've been partners now for about 30 years. I make him pay every day. And, but no, it was, we knew we were all getting laid off. But we then got into doing our own business. Launching our own as a company called the Sands Group in 1994, and we've been multiple companies ever since. So right now we have Commercial Brokers International in Los Angeles. We have Icon Capital Advisors. It's a commercial mortgage company that we're in partnership with BMC Capital out of Dallas. We have a commercial real estate affiliate network. It's a group of how do I say boutique, but independent commercial real estate brokers that we all get together. And if I just had one this morning, a guy called. He goes, I've got a bunch of multifamily in Chicago. I want to get it sold. So I called CRE advisors in Chicago and said, here, take care of this. So we swap deals back and forth. And so that's kind of it right now.
So, Joe, I mean, you've got your hand in a lot of different things, and you've done a ton of different things in real estate over 30 years, starting in auctions and residential, and starting in farm work. That seems like a very Nebraska thing to do.
It was.
So today, where do you find yourself spending the majority of your time and effort? What sort of efforts do you find yourself in?
It depends on the company, but for our commercial brokerage company, it's just sitting down with our newer agents. We keep about between 15 and 20% of our company, our brokerage company, is newer agents. So I spend a lot of time with them. You can see the joekillinger.co behind me here. It's just a passion I have to help younger people that want to get into the commercial real estate industry really find a path, because when I was starting, you just didn't have it. Everybody, they saw there was just really no mentoring in commercial real estate when we got started. So we had to figure it out on our own. And it just made it a lot more difficult. So our goal is to really bring a younger generation into the industry. And you're starting to see a real evolution in commercial real estate right now. And we've seen, when we started with the Sands Group, that was that was a auction company. And, we partnered with the largest independent broker in LA called Fred Sands Realtors. And we launched the Sands Group in 94. And that was, we had no internet. We had no internet. And they gave us that little Apple computer that probably is worth a lot of money right now, right? But that's how we kept everything on Excel spreadsheets. And we were selling 600 to 700 properties a year. And, that was strictly cold calling. So, we really learned how to cold call back then out of necessity, because both George nor I had any money. And so we had to make a living. So within the first 18 months, we lived in that office. We cold called all day, every day. We'd show up in the office around 7 a.m. and we're in Los Angeles. We'd start calling New York, and we called developers and banks all across, moving west. Even at the end of the day, we ended up calling on banks and developers in Hawaii. And then we'd stop around 4 o'clock, 4 o'clock, and print the letters, fold them, put them in the mail. And so it was quite the process. We did that about 6 days a week. So it's a different time. But what a great way to cut your teeth. And fortunately, coming from Woods Brothers Realty in Lincoln, I knew how to cold call. So, and then the DBL Realtors that we launched with the largest independent broker here, I guess at that time they were the largest because Fred Sands ended up selling. But DBL, we launched a commercial division for them, and they were largest independent residential firm. And our process there was completely different. The way we generated revenue very quickly was going out and educating the residential agents on how to pitch to get their residential people to convert to commercial. And so we did that pretty quickly. And, we hit office meetings, got up. I wasn't a public speaker, and I learned very quickly that I had to get up and start talking. And, it was very hard, and then in 2005, we launched Commercial Brokers International, the company I'm at now. And it's a full service commercial brokerage company. All different.
Joe, you've launched these multiple companies, and you've achieved some great success with them. And in your intro, I read that you've grown 3 companies to over $5 million in revenue. What do you believe? You've got a podcast, you've got an active YouTube channel. I'm sure you talk with a lot of aspiring real estate professionals, and you've experienced so much success. What do you believe is holding back some of these younger aspiring real estate professionals from achieving great success?
And it's really probably the number one thing, Jonathan, is they're overthinking it. This business is not that difficult. It's really, and there's videos and there's, I mean, if anything, there's probably too much information really, right? But, a lot of young people I talk to, I'm like, you need to simplify this. You need to break this down. If we're talking about marketing for them, we're talking about, get three pillars. What are your three pillars going to be? If you're going to be multifamily, do multifamily content. If you're going to be in the area you're going to be, if it's going to be multifamily in LA, so there's your second pillar is LA, and then your personal stuff, a little bit about you, because people do business with people they know, right? And trust. And so, you got to build that trust, and that just takes a little time. But, and then so not overthinking it, and then tracking your results. I would be you'll be surprised at how often when you're talking to even somebody who's been in the business a while, you ask, okay, how's your content going? How are your calls going? Calls aren't great. And I said, okay, when is the last time you've changed your pitch? And a lot of them goes, oh, I don't even know. And so, you've really got to make sure you're tracking the results you have, because if you're doing something every day that's not working, you've got to figure that out and you got to change it. You got to find something that works. And if you have something that's working, double down on that right now, and then educate yourself or bring somebody in that can really take over what's not working for you and really show you how to do it. And it's pretty simple. This business, as you know, Jonathan, is not that hard. It's just you have to analyze what you're doing every day.
Yeah, great advice there. And you've talked a couple times now about cold calling. And I think you first brought it up talking about when you were 18 years old trying to sell farms in Nebraska. And I have no doubt that cold calling has been integral to your success as a business owner and real estate professional. Can you talk about some of the obstacles that people face in cold calling, and what are your suggestions in overcoming those?
I see it every day, Jonathan. It's, we just talked to our new agents, and, they're going for the sale right away. They do two things. First of all, they're worried about the number of calls, and which, we try to say, do 70 calls a day. And then, they're doing an 8-hour day. So, it's not even 10 calls an hour. And, so don't so much go for the quality. If you think you have to do 100 to 200, I mean, there's a company that's a competitor here in LA that has their agents making 150 to 200 phone calls a day. I'm like, Christ Almighty, could you imagine? I mean, because there's so much other to do. Now, when I was doing the Sands Group, yeah, we would do that. We would do that because we had nothing else. There was all you could do was cold call. You could not email. I mean, you couldn't get access to the information. And so, but yeah, you got to make sure that, the number of calls, and stop selling. If you're cold calling, so many agents are going for the close right off the bat when you need to focus on building a relationship. If you can close somebody on your first call, a cold call, that's phenomenal. But, most of the time, percentage wise, it just doesn't happen. So you got to focus on building the relationship, find their pain points, how you can help them, and listening. It's, if you see a lot of these people, they get, or your younger agents that I talk to, and I mentor a good number of people around the country, they'll get on, they just talk and talk and talk. And, it's amazing, Jonathan. The older I get, the smarter my parents get. And my dad one day said, Jesus Christ, Joe, he goes, you got one mouth and two ears. Shut up and listen for a while. He was not happy with me about something. I don't remember what. But, yeah, it's just listen, and you got to really think you're building relationships. Commercial real estate, if you're investing or brokerage, even, it's all about building relationships.
Do you have any examples of specific questions that can maybe break the ice to get, the person you're calling to open up a little bit and start talking, to establish a connection and a relationship?
Yeah, I mean, it's what we do is we try and get them to, before our agents get on the phone, this is what we do. So we'll have them for 2 weeks. I need you to be on CoStar all day, every day, knowing your market. I want to know if it's retail. How many square feet are on the market right now? How long has it been? Who's new into the area? And, who's talking about going out? You just be the person that knows the most about that area. And then when you're cold calling, if you can bring something up that they don't know, especially if there's a new store coming in or if there's a store talking about going out. And and here's the way, especially in retail, you can get it. We do a thing that's called the block program. And so our agents in retail will pick an area. Let's say it's in Brentwood, and they'll do 3 blocks on either side of the road. One week they're going to walk down both sides of the street, and they're going to walk into the store, introduce themselves, and get to know everybody that's in that store. And they're going to do that every 2 to 3 weeks. And by the time the third or fourth time you're going in there, they're going to know you. And you would be surprised how much information those people that trust you will give you information about what's going on in the community. That really helps you bring a lot of value to your cold calling. But asking questions that are relevant to the properties that the owner of the property owns. How's it going out there? Get them to talk to you. Obviously doesn't always work, but getting them to communicate with you, getting that dialogue back and forth is the key to getting in a relationship going right. I mean, if you're standing in a bar trying to talk to a guy or a girl and you're just talking and they're not responding, you kind of got the idea, right? But if you have something that is of interest, or did you know that this property just sold down the street from you? Did you know that this property just leased out? Bring something of interest to them. If you're just cold calling to get to the next call, that's tough.
Yeah. Yeah. Great advice. It sounds like bring something of value. Don't call someone up and say, hey, do you want to list your property with me? That's, it sounds like that's from a broker's perspective, that's probably not a winning strategy most of the time.
Yeah, but it's like cold calls and emails. We have a bad habit of we're coming from, the back seat and we're trying to get up to the passenger side, right? So we be next to them and we come from this weakened position. And so a lot of it's how you phrase everything is if, let's say I do a cold email to somebody, they don't respond. I've called, I've emailed, typically what a lot of agents do is like, hey, Jonathan, reached out a few times, hadn't heard back to you. Really love to have a conversation with you. That puts you in you're in the back seat. Now, if you call up and say, hey, Jonathan, I've called you a couple of times, haven't heard anything back. Where do we go from here? Maybe put yourself like you're right next in the seat with them, having a conversation with them instead of trying to get their attention. You don't need them. You want to kind of have that mentality, even though you do. You want to come from a position of power as best you can, or at least seem like it.
So, Joe, from what you're experiencing in investment sales right now, in either in Southern California or what you're experiencing across the country, are there any patterns to the deals that are getting done, or what is your experiencing? What is your experience in investment sales right now?
Cap rates are stabilizing across the country. You're seeing, the void between buyers and sellers is getting narrower. In some cases, they're getting very, very close. So you're starting to see more money come into the market. There's a lot of money sitting on the sidelines right now. They're waiting to find deals, and they're calling the banks. They're calling, investors are calling people that might be struggling a little bit right now. And there's a lot of off-market deals that are happening that a lot of investors just aren't, even brokers aren't even seeing. So, but cap rates have stabilized, and it's bringing more money to the table right now.
Yeah, that's good to hear. I guess depending on from what perspective you're hearing that from. And Joe, I know one of your businesses is a lender, and so I'd be really interested to hear kind of what your experience is from the lending side. What sort of deals are getting financed right now, and what sort of deals are not getting financed right now?
The leverage is a lot lower. It's interest rates have kind of stabilized right now, and they're talking. I guess they're meeting today and tomorrow, but about lowering them. I don't know how much it's going to be, but I don't know if it's even going to be enough to move the needle. But you're seeing that lower leverage deals are happening, 50%, sometimes even lower. But they've got a pencil. We've had so many years of deals that you kind of did a mirror test, and if you fogged it up, they gave you a loan, and we historically that's not been good. And but if we're seeing leverage, you're going to have come in with some money down.
Yeah. Are there any specific opportunities or risks that you're seeing in the marketplace right now from your perspective?
All asset classes, there's opportunity right now. There are people that were over leveraged. Let's say they got a loan at 3%, and if they're going to be able to refi at 6%, they're still, it probably isn't going to pencil for them. I would be calling on people that have owned properties for 4 or 5 years, or less, and see what they're talking about doing. And I'd be staying on the phones with all asset classes. But you know, the thing is, Jonathan, is real estate is such a localized market. You have to know what's going on in your specific market. And we keep hearing so many people that are, I want to be. I'm in California. I want to be in Texas. And okay, great. But how are you going to manage it? Because I can tell you, I own property in Dallas, Texas. I own multifamily there, and we had a group of buildings we owned there, all multifamily at the time. And every one of them that we bought was because the management was local, but the investor was out of state. And 100% of the deals, I can give you one. There was a 71 unit building that we owned. They we were sitting down with a manager that was managing that particular property, and she said to us, "Are you going to be able to keep me on?" We're like, "No, Cheryl, your salary, we're not going to be able to." She goes, "My salary is the same as everybody else in the area," because they all know each other, of course. I said, "No." I said, "Here's the number." She goes, "Oh, I don't make that." She goes, "The management company's keeping half of that." And so they were giving a maintenance guy a free apartment. They were giving a cleaning, a free 3 bedroom apartment for himself. It just went on and on and on. They were doing all this. And that maintenance guy was actually working down the street at their other property, wasn't even working on that property. So, boots on the ground. Again, it goes back to passive income, right? There's nothing passive about real estate, really. There is opportunity. Just be aware that when you're acquiring an asset, you know what you're looking at, or get a professional involved that can help you.
Joe, are you actively looking for more multifamily right now?
Not multifamily. So what we did is we got approached about our multifamily assets, and we were in a tight area in the Dallas area. And a guy came and goes, "Listen, I want to be in that area. Are you guys are going to sell your properties?" And we weren't planning on it. We were redeveloping it. And he goes, "Well, I want to be in that area. What would you take?" And so we put our numbers together on what it would be if we went through all the brain damage of evicting everybody, doing the construction, rebuilding. And we showed him the number. He goes, "Okay." And he took it. So we took that money and we bought a few triple net properties in Dallas, Chase Banks, Jack in the Boxes, that kind of stuff, all in great areas, Allen, Texas, and in Dallas. And so we are just now starting to look at more triple net deals around the country. They've been a little bit slow lately, but my business partner, George, it's a CEO. He is the king of single tenant net lease deals around the country. So we'll focus on that right now, and we'll buy a few more, and then we want to get into where we're flipping them, single tenant net lease deals that we can acquire that maybe there's 2 years left on the lease, and we can bring in a tenant because George has all these contacts for these tenants now, and we can re-tenant it, redo the lease, and make a nice little pop on it. So that'll be our focus probably going into next year. We're in no rush. It's just when the market is right.
And as far as markets, do you especially like Texas? Are you open to opportunities nationwide?
Yeah, we look at deals nationwide. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we look at a deal in Grand Island, Nebraska. We missed out on. I drive by this Chipotle every day when I'm visiting I go home twice a year, and I thought, oh, that'd be a nice one to own, and it did come up on the market, and we got outbid on it. So.
Yeah, really interesting. So in the net lease space, so you talked about one strategy of maybe looking for some expiring leases with some meat on the bone. It sounds like maybe you bought some other stabilized net lease properties. I think you mentioned a Chase Bank, Jack in the Box. Mm-hmm. Is that another strategy of buying stabilized? And if so, what does stabilized mean to you? What made those deals juicy for you?
At that time, it was just the cap rate was really good. I don't remember, it was 5, just under 6, and for both of them. or all of them. And the I want to do a mix. So I want to do more of those stabilized deals, but mix in the higher risk ones, so I can get a little higher pop on those. And so we'll create something that is going to be a hybrid, and really, so we can drive our numbers up.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense. I heard, I was listening to somebody recently who was talking about buying assets, targeting assets with 15 to 20-year leases with annual increases. And so
Yeah,
you buy this really stabilized property with a great lease and you just sit on it. It's a
yeah.
triple net lease or absolute net lease, and they have 2 to 3% rent increases annually.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you sit on it for 5 years, you can increase NOI just
Yep.
naturally, organically, and then
Yep.
you may capitalize on a good opportunity 5 years down the road when it's still a great lease, 10 to 15 years left on it, but NOI is
Yeah.
a little bit higher.
Yeah. Even the Chase Bank that we got in Dallas is it was going dark and there were 7 years left, so there's just under 6 years left now. And so it's dark because they combined two banks and opened a brand new location. So we've got over an acre of land that we're getting ready to start shopping out there, and we'll be able to bring in a new tenant and work it out and really make a nice return on that money with a brand new tenant. So we're looking forward to that. We'd like to get creative with this stuff. It's something we've done for so long, and we're fortunate that George has all the contacts now. He can pick up the phone and talk to a lot of people that are running a lot of these franchises, and just makes it a lot easier. It's a
It's
great
good
way
to
to
know.
go.
It's good to know people that know people, and it
Yeah,
sounds like you've got
exactly.
one in George.
Yeah, yeah. I'll never fire him as CEO. So actually, he has half the company anyway, so I couldn't anyway. But I'll probably keep him around because it just is. It's just a great way to go. The returns aren't super high, but they're stable. And I tell you, Jonathan, coming from multifamily where the phone was ringing 24/7, to you get a ping on your phone that hey, the check hit. That's about it. I'll take that.
Yes, I've got in my portfolio, I've got some net leased industrial properties. So not the
Oh
credit
yeah.
tenants that you have, but yeah, once a month I hear from the tenant and it's just a notification that the ACH
Mm-hmm.
transfer is going through to my bank account. So that's
It's sweet music, isn't it?
right. That's what I
Yeah,
love about that.
yeah.
Joe, as we get to the tail end of our conversation, can you think of any daily habits or practices that contribute to your personal or professional success?
I think for me, Jonathan, the structure. I'm very structured. We have a lot going on, as we've talked about, and the only way I can get through that is structure, and then having the right team members. I've got somebody running our marketing. I've got partners in the other companies that I talk to on a daily basis. But if I didn't have that structure, there would be a lot of stuff that I missed. I'm solid on the calendar. I make sure that first thing I do is look at it in the morning to make sure, okay, let's make sure we don't miss any of these meetings. And but it's the structure is the key. You've got to make sure you've got your daily structure in place. It'll save you.
One theme that's come up throughout your story that is not on my outline of questions, but I want to ask you about mentors. And it sounds like you got started with a great mentor in
Mm-hmm.
Nebraska. I think you
Yep.
said you got another mentor when you moved to California. So
Yep.
I know there are people listening that are thinking, "Man, I would love to do this stuff, but I just don't know how. I need someone to help me get started." Do you have any recommendations for people to find a mentor?
Yeah. Yeah. So I do a lot of mentoring myself. We're probably a little too much right now, but it's a great way to really get your foot in the door in commercial real estate as a broker or an investor. But what you want to do is find somebody that's in your market that is doing exactly what you want to do, and give them a call. Ask. That's John. That's the most. I'll talk to people. Like I said, have you called that person and asked them? Well, no. I said, well, okay, that's where you want to start. Pick up the phone and have a conversation with them. If they're not willing to do it, ask them if they know somebody that is. But now the key is don't just take from them. Say, listen, I know you're doing exactly what I want to do. And I'll use marketing, for example. So if you want to be a broker and you want to be multifamily broker and you want to do it in Dallas, Texas, then get hold of the top multifamily broker in Texas and say, listen, I would love to mentor for you. And I see that you don't put a lot of content out for your marketing. How about I do your marketing for you and you teach me the business? So bring value to them, really, and watch it'll open the communication up. You've got to give something. You can't just take, but pick up the phone and call people and just start asking. You'd be surprised. I've got two interns in here right now that, they're learning so much from our agents. They're just sitting there listening and helping out. But they called the office and asked.
Yeah.
Otherwise we weren't advertising.
Great advice. Great advice. Finally, Joe, as we wrap up, I know you are active in lots of different places on the internet. If people want to learn more about you, connect with you, where would you like to send people to?
You can go to the website that's behind me, joekillinger.co, or the YouTube channel. We put a ton of content out. We put videos out 5 days a week, long form on Monday, and then short form Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, sometimes on Sunday even. But it's just under Joe Killinger. Or if you want to email me, it's joe@joekillinger.co.
And definitely check out that YouTube channel. There's a ton of content there, and Joe is connected to a ton of really high-performing people in the real estate industry. That's how we got connected. So that is definitely something that listeners should check out. Joe, thank you so much for joining me today.
Jonathan, thank you very much for having me. I appreciate it.
Listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, feel free to reach out to either one of us. We love talking about commercial real estate, and we would love to connect with you. Thank you so much for listening. We'll have another great interview coming next week. Until next time.